Hello again, and welcome back to week 33 of no, not week 33, week 23 of the of year 4 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 3. Um, so last week we saw the end of the Lord's interaction with the people and the Pharisees in the temple. After the conversation had gone back and forth several times, the Lord concludes by telling them explicitly who he is, saying, "Before Abraham was, I am." At this point, they all took up stones to kill him, but he passed through the midst of them, as it was not yet his time, to offer himself for us and for the life of the world. So this time we will see what comes next as he proceeds from the temple along his way. So this is the beginning of John chapter 9. As he walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground, and made mud with the saliva, and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed, and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it is someone like him." He kept saying, "I am the man." But they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' Then I went and washed and received my sight." They said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I do not know." Now this isn't the end of the story, but we'll finish that next week. For now, it's good that we remember where we have just been. Jesus has been in the temple, effectively disputing for quite a long time with the Pharisees and preaching to the people. And then he left when they tried to kill him, and then walked along, and he sees a man blind from birth. So Jesus has just proclaimed himself to be the Most High God of Israel, to be Yahweh, the God of Israel, by saying, "I am before Abraham was." This is an explicit claim to be Yahweh, the God of Israel. The same Most High God who freed Israel from slavery in Egypt, who proclaimed himself to them and gave them the law on Mount Sinai, who led them through the wilderness, who brought them into the promised land. All of these, he's saying, I am your God. And they tried to kill him. So as he goes, then he sees the blind man. It's interesting, the blind man doesn't seem to come and ask for help. Jesus just goes to the blind man. That we presume that the blind man has an eagerness, a desire to be cleansed or to be healed. But this is unusual, especially compared to most of the miracles we see in the Synoptic Gospels, where someone comes to Jesus and asks for his help. And he asks them if they believe, and they have a dialogue, and then he heals them and says, "Your faith has made you whole." In this time, Jesus seems to just approach the man who's born blind. He's born blind, so that means either his eyes have never worked, or perhaps he's born without eyes at all. So the sense that we sometimes see in the fathers of the church and hear in sermons that are preached on this is that Jesus makes mud because as he made man from the dust of the ground, now he is making new eyes for this man. So having proclaimed, I should say, himself to be Most High God, the creator of humanity and of all that is, Jesus is acting clearly and visibly as the creator who makes man out of the dust of the ground and who heals and gives this man new eyes from the dust of the ground. He sends him to wash, and then the man is able to see. But he doesn't know where Jesus went, and everyone's like confused. And who did this? And so everyone's having a conversation. Well, so we'll see more about that next time. For now, it's worthwhile to look back at the conversation that Jesus has with the disciples, because they want to know whose sin is being punished with the blindness of the man. Now, Jesus' response saying no one sinned, or rather, we could misread that and say, oh, this man has never sinned at all. He's perfect, and his parents are also perfect. That's not the point. I think we should understand the point here to be Jesus is saying this blindness isn't a punishment for anything. This is simply his lot so that the glory of God, God's works, can be revealed in him. And this is perhaps a valuable thing for us to remember as we are suffering, as we are struggling. And it's valuable also to ask the question, to whom are God's works being revealed in this man? Is it to the disciples? Are the disciples in need of seeing more clearly that Jesus is the light of the world? Are the random onlookers and observers? Jesus clearly doesn't do this where anyone can see, so it's rather clear that maybe it's for the disciples, but they don't need to be convinced. They're already following Jesus. They don't understand quite who he is, but they've seen plenty of miracles, and those haven't helped. So the revelation of God's works in the granting of sight, the granting of new eyes to this man born blind, is to the man who is born blind. He is born blind so that he can receive sight from the Most High God and be granted salvation and understand the works of God and rejoice. And for all of us, when we are suffering, when we are grieving, when we are struggling in the face of the brokenness of this creation, it is good that we remember that bad things happen to us for many reasons. Sometimes they are not God's punishment upon us because of our sins, but the natural consequences of our sins. If we get drunk, we will have a hangover. If we eat too much ice cream, we will have a bellyache. That's not God punishing us. That is the consequences of what we have brought upon ourselves. The chickens come home to roost. But sometimes, very often in fact, we experience sickness, we experience trouble, we experience loss, and we might wonder, what have we done that is so much worse than everyone else around us that we are punished in this way? And ultimately, whether we are then granted healing or restoration or a direct resolution to the suffering that we have, it's good to remember this, that God allows suffering. God permits sickness and trouble to come to us so that we can receive the good things of God in that place of need. This man receives his sight when he has no sight. Sometimes in grief we can receive comfort. Sometimes in brokenness and sickness or in old age we can learn to turn towards the Lord for the comfort and hope that we realize cannot be found anywhere else. But very often this is the answer. Evil things, troubled things, broken things are allowed to be in this world so that God's works can be revealed in our brokenness, in our weakness, so that we can see God working in us. Because if everything is great, where do we see God working? We don't need God, we think. And that is human nature. If everything is going well, it's very difficult for us to discern our need for the Lord. So, anyway, perhaps more thoughts than this passage deserves, but at any rate, that's enough for today and for this week. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.